Hello, welcome to this episode of Preventing People Problems, brought to you by the HR department. Today I'm joined by John and Justine from Finwell, who are going to be talking about financial wellbeing for your employees. Hello and welcome to Preventing People Problems, a podcast brought to you by the HR department. I'm Tracy Hudson and today I have John and Justine Piercy from Finwell. Hello.
Good morning.
How
Hi.
are you both?
Yeah,
Good,
not bad.
thank
Thank you.
Good.
How are you? Are you good?
Yeah, good. Justine,
Yes.
say hello to everybody and just give us a bit of a background on you.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Justine Piercy. I'm head of training here at Finwell. My background is 30 years in banking and finance. Worked for a couple of the big high street banks in a number of different leadership and training and coaching roles, and then went through a really tricky redundancy about 5 years ago. And I'm now spend most of my time training and coaching and just generally helping people with all areas of their finance, really.
Lovely. Amazing. John?
Yeah, I'm John Piercy. I also work with Finwell. I'm a wellbeing coach. If you hadn't figured it out, I'm also Justine's husband. I've also spent 30 years in financial services. It's where Justine and I met.
Oh, that's nice.
I know, lovely, isn't it? Similar career journey, various leadership roles. I ended up going down a more specialised side of being qualified financial advisor, being able to talk about pensions, investments, mortgages, the whole shooting match, really. And then about 3 years ago, I retired, which was fantastic.
How's that working out for you, John?
Yeah,
feel
seemed
like
to be busier than ever before.
Yeah.
And I joined the Finwell team to provide individual support for employees and coaching and development around their finances. And I've got to be honest, I absolutely love it.
Amazing. So you're not missing retirement because you haven't
No,
experienced it yet.
not
anyway.
really.
Not much, but I still get some time. I'm in control of someone's in control of my time, just not necessarily me.
Justine's
true.
like nodding
Yeah,
a lot.
that's
That's
true.
your job. Okay, so we want to talk about financial wellbeing.
Yeah.
Let's just start off with a real basic. Why should employers care?
Well, there's lots and lots of reasons, Tracy, why employers should care, but the biggest thing is driven at the moment because of the cost of living crisis, right?
Yeah.
So it's the number one cause of stress and anxiety in the workplace. So the links between financial wellbeing and mental health are the worst they've ever been. And we see a lot of employers not knowing how to help employees in the workplace, and we also see a number of employees that have never had any education through growing up. We don't learn about money.
You don't do it at school.
We don't do it at
It's
school, which is
insane,
crazy, and I wish we did, and I do still do some work with schools, but inevitably we tend to learn about this stuff just through trial and error or what we learn from people around us. So employers definitely need to have this on their radar right now, and it impacts in a number of different ways, largely around presenteeism, productivity, retention, stress, anxiety. But it's also a problem that's not going to go away, even if we see our economy improving and the cost of living crisis getting better.
Yeah.
It's just that lack of education, and
Well,
it
there'll just
spills
be another
in.
crisis. We've had an energy crisis. We
Yeah.
had lockdown.
Yeah.
You could just go
Absolutely,
on and on.
and if you look back historically, we see this, don't we? The highs and lows of the economy that impacts on people and businesses.
I would add to that. If employers choose to do this, it can be a real benefit. We regularly see both employers and their employees that offer fantastic benefits packages, but the employees typically don't understand it. And the employers don't know how to communicate how great it is, which means from a retention point of view and a value point of view and an endorsement point of view of where they're working, if employers better understand their benefits and know how to make it work for them, they're less likely to go hunting just the pure salary elsewhere.
Yeah.
They're going to be more satisfied at work. They're going to be concentrating on their things. So employers can utilise people like Finwell to help educate their employees so they realise the benefits they're actually getting from their employer. It doesn't have to be a reaction to a negative situation. It can be a really positive thing as well.
And I guess with benefits, with a small business, because most of our listeners are small businesses, right? In HR, you'll find business owners who used to work at a corporate, so they've just nicked the employment contract and they've used it as a template and they've got themselves into a mess. Yeah. And it's kind of the same, like, what benefits did I have in corporate life? Oh, well, I can't afford to do that because I'm a small business. So you kind of just put it out of your mind and assume that that's just not for you or for your team. Yeah. So you focus on something else. So what can small business owners do? Yeah.
So I think small business owners often wear a number of different hats, okay? So they haven't got a head of HR or a head of Wellbeing or someone that's, you know, promoting employee benefits. So I think small business owners need to know what to do and where to go for help and support. If a colleague came to a small business owner and said, I'm really struggling, I'm up to my eyes in debt, would a small business owner know what to say, or where to go, or how to help? So I think
they just straight away go to, oh, they want a pay rise.
And
it not think of anything else.
And I think there is that misconception, I think it's a misconception anyway, that pay is the only solution, and it's not. But I don't think businesses and small business owners are well equipped or have the time or knowledge to know how to help. So I think that's the first thing. The other thing, certainly from a colleague retention point of view, having the skills to know how to spot the signs of poor financial well-being. You know, small business owners are probably going to have close relationships with employees because they're a small business, more so than a big corporate. But do they know how to spot the signs? Do they know how to see that there might be underlying issues that they're not talking about? Because the other thing about financial well-being, of course, is it's such a taboo subject. No one is going to openly admit they're struggling to pay their mortgage because it's gone up by £500 a month. So I think small business owners do need to equip themselves to know how to spot signs, but also where to provide support and help, but not forgetting that small business owners themselves have got their own challenges, things around cash flow and salary sacrifice and you know, pay and all of those kind of things. So I think it's twofold. I think financial well-being to help small business owners, but also financial well-being for employees.
And just for a business owner to have the confidence to know what to say, so that they are coming across as supportive, which is what they want to do, and not insinuating anything or making assumptions or offending anybody. It's
and we talk a lot about spotting the signs, and it's not easy to spot the signs.
So what sort of signs?
So we see things like and I saw a story the other day. Somebody was nicking toilet rolls out of the ladies' loo and got caught by employer. And the underlying issue is because she can't afford her shopping. And, you know, something as simple as stealing a banana or taking, you know, freebie stuff. We've seen examples of that, haven't we?
Not going out on the Friday night drinks after work, or always working through and never going out if they're going to grab lunch or things like that. Some really simple things where people are there saying, I'm too busy, or I've got other things to do. When
changes in behaviours are big ones.
Have to pay for stuff they can't afford.
Small business owners might be seeing people requesting wages early, for example, or loans short term. They're all kind of danger signs. They're warning signals that there's some underlying financial issue going on.
Or I guess needing to work from home. If you can't
needing to work from home.
Fuel in the car.
Travel costs obviously gone up, things like that. So the whole debate about hybrid working. And so I think there are a number of ways that we can help to upskill and help people know what some of the common signs are. But then it's also about, well, what do you say? You know, don't just say, you know, oh, well, you know, go and do a budget. That's not going to help anyone, right? So, or go and Google debt advice. There must be some help and support on the internet. That's not going to help. So it's also equipping employers and business owners with those skill sets and knowing where to go for help and support.
Yeah. You mentioned salary sacrifice.
Yeah.
Should we talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, that's John's.
One of your favourite topics, John.
So, and this, it's a wider piece than just salary sacrifice, because particularly small business owners, they're less likely to take advantage of some of the tax benefits or the general benefits that are available to both them and their employee. And even if they do sign up to it, they won't necessarily understand it.
Yes.
So one of the biggest things about salary sacrifice is a great thing that basically means that you reduce your formal pay, which means potentially for employees you pay less tax.
Yeah.
Now, it's particularly relevant these days when the tax bands aren't going up.
Mm-hmm.
More and more people are now paying higher rate tax than they were before,
Yeah.
which means they lose some other potential benefits, and salary sacrifice can help that, particularly around
Pension.
incomes of 50,000 or incomes of around 100,000.
Mm.
Salary sacrifice works, but it means that the employee gets a significant benefit and a boost into their pension.
So
But
can you give
from
us
an
an
employer
example?
point of view,
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So let's say if I'm an employee and I've just tripped over 60,000 as an income.
Mm-hmm.
So they've just moved the child benefit allowance, but once you get over 60,000, your child benefit starts going down. If I instead do salary sacrifice, my formal salary would be lower than 60,000, meaning that I still get my full child benefit if I've got a child. And how the employer gets around that is by paying extra into the pension rather than giving it as a salary, so they get around it that way.
Yeah.
Now, the other advantage to that, as well as tax, there's national insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, national insurance has been reduced, but it still exists and is likely to do so for years to come. So from an employee point of view, that's great, but the employer pays national insurance contributions on their salary as well. So in effect, salary sacrifice means that the employer pays less national insurance as
So
well.
employers really need to be encouraging salary sacrifice schemes.
Exactly right. But normally when employees ask employers, big or small, how does this work? They get a nervous laugh or a blank look saying, well, this is kind of the numbers, not this is the benefit.
Yeah.
And that's where, particularly with small employees, they're less likely to have that expertise. They may have never been asked the question before. And if you Google salary sacrifice, you get 100 different answers, some of which, most of which concentrate on the calculation rather than the benefit, the advantage.
Yeah.
They certainly don't link to other tax advantages, tax-free childcare, for example, as you get to the higher amount, or different benefits.
Yeah.
And that's where we quite regularly sit down and build it into sessions and go, listen, you have, as an employee, your employer can provide this to you. This is what it means. And you get a sudden surge in people applying for it because light bulbs come on and they go, wow. And the employer goes, I wish I'd had somebody in to talk about this before.
Amazing.
And there's some other bits to that as well. So on top of the salary sacrifice, there's some simple things. We mentioned a moment ago working from home.
Yeah.
Most employers don't understand that if it's part of their contract to work from home, they can claim tax relief on that. Most employers don't.
Does it have to be 100% that they're working from home?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
as long as it's part of their contract that they do for some. There are different rules for different people.
Okay.
But again, employers don't necessarily understand it, but it's
Yeah.
the equivalent of a small pay rise. So if you're an employer and you understand it, you should be saying to your employees, as well as working from home, which saves you in travel, don't forget to claim the tax back.
Yeah.
And there are a few other things like that, which, why would the employer understand that?
So when you say don't forget to claim the tax back, the employees do that, or the employers do that on behalf of?
The employee claims it back.
So there's no additional onus on the employer to do anything.
But these are the kind of things that as a business we can really help.
And it's easy to say just claim the tax back.
How do you
But if anyone's ever tried to do a tax return themselves, it's not as easy. So people need help with that. And if employers aren't there to help them, and that's why people don't do it. People don't realise they might know they can claim their tax back, but because they don't know how to.
Vast majority of people, from my experience, don't. And then when you explain to them they can,
they're like, ooh, how do I do that?
really? That's free
exactly.
money.
How do you do that? And you don't want to be seen to be asking the stupid question.
And the employer probably doesn't know either. So, but that's the lack of education, again, not just about what you're entitled to and claiming for it, but how do I actually log on and get a gateway access code and fill in a form for, HMRC. And HMRC are closing down helplines left, right and centre. So it kind of, there's lots and lots of barriers that get in the way, but the advantages can be huge. So it's about knowing there's help and support out there.
It's also that wider piece. I recently had an example where we'd run a workshop for a small startup company paying relatively significant amounts of money to their colleagues working out of London, and I ended up having one-to-ones afterwards. And normally I have one-to-ones about how to make more money out of your savings or pensions or things like that. But a young lass contacted me and said, I've got a real problem. I've filled in my tax return because I had to. I've got a tax bill and it's for £34,000. And I don't know what to do now, unsurprisingly. Her employer didn't know what to do either. Ended up having a one-to-one with me. She filled in a tax return wrongly. She put a piece in the wrong box. And
oh my
I
gosh.
wasn't able to remove it completely, but I got her bill down to about £3,000. So,
wow.
And that was just a case of she took advantage of the situation that we were already working with the employer, so that there were one-to-ones available. But having somebody who's filled in these things loads and loads of times with clients, it made perfect sense to me to just work through the numbers because the numbers didn't add up.
Yeah.
But the employer wouldn't know where to start with that,
No.
and they didn't have an HR department really. Well, they did. It was the boss and same person.
But can you imagine stress and anxiety that individual would have gone through? 34,000 tax bill would immediately put me into, fight or flight. It's horrendous.
But stories like that mean that people don't just claim the tax back 'cause it's just too overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely
Or they
right.
do and then realise, 34,000, and they accept it's right. But luckily,
had she have paid it, then I doubt she'd have ever.
She wouldn't have been able to, surely.
Well, no.
When it should have been 3. Who has that sort of money
had
sitting
the
around?
money, then HMRC certainly wouldn't have come back anytime soon and gone, I think that's wrong, because they rely on people too.
But that's the impact of having access to one-to-one guidance, because actually some people just need their hand-holding or that acknowledgement that there was something wrong. And that's the power.
So thinking about sticking with the salary sacrifice for a bit, what actually can people salary sacrifice for? So childcare we've talked about.
Yeah, potentially. So there are all sorts of potential benefits you can. So there is the biggest one, the most common one that people take advantage of is pensions. That's nice and straightforward. But there are also potentially childcare. There's also cost of various insurances that sometimes your employer can provide as well, things like life cover or critical illness or income protection that sometimes they provide. You can do it with certain car schemes as well. I know increasingly, particularly small companies would tend to not have a formalised company car scheme, but there are companies out there who can do it. So there are all sorts of different benefits depending on the circumstances and what the employees need and what the employers want to offer.
Can I ask about the income protection?
Yeah.
Because, going back to small business owner, used to work in a corporate, stole the contract as their template. So quite often when we first start working with clients, we'll see that people are offering 6 months full pay, 6 months half pay, public sector stuff.
Yeah.
We're like, you're a small business, you
can't
can't
do that. Yeah.
And they'll say, I didn't even realise that was in there.
Yeah.
So would income protection, offering that, be a good alternative?
Certainly has the
to kind of
potential.
fix, because you want to look after your stuff, especially in a small business. If somebody's sick for a long period of time, I think your first instinct is, oh my gosh, I need to look after them. But you can't necessarily afford to do that financially, but you really want to.
Yeah.
So would that be a good alternative?
It's certainly a potential. Often corporate income protection schemes work with economies of scale.
Right.
Because the majority of people won't get sick, and therefore the cost is relatively inexpensive. Smaller the number of people, insurance companies will typically look at who the people are, while with a large group, they'll tend to just go, okay, you've got 50 employees, so we'll just give you an average quote on that basis.
Yeah.
But it can be something that works.
Interesting.
And there are certainly providers out there who'd be able to look at that for employers large or small and say, this is how we can do it. And yeah, absolutely right. Generally, income protection can tend to tailor it so that when the employer's benefit finishes, the income protection kicks in. So large corporate, 6 months half pay, 6 months full, 6 months half.
Yeah.
You then have no payment for 6 months and 6 months half. But if they're not able to offer that, you can reduce it down so that it kicks in after 3 months, or it kicks in after 8 weeks, or whatever.
Yeah, interesting.
The other build on that, so I think that from a business owner there's options, but I think when we talk to individuals and we're educating employees, there's things that employees can be doing themselves. So employees, we talk a lot about financial resilience, which is essentially building up emergency funds, a bit of a buffer, so that if something happens or goes wrong, or an emergency, or I get sick and I need to take time off work, that they themselves have got some added to fall back on. So, and we talk about that. The reason why we talk about that an awful lot is because 20% of the population right now have less than £100 in savings, which is just scary. I'll say that again.
Of the population.
A fifth of the population in this country have less than £100 in savings. Yeah. So if they get sick and they, made redundant, lose their job, they're going to go straight into debt. They're going to go straight to that credit card.
But everyone goes through that phase, right? You come out of education, whether that's college, uni, school, whatever. Yeah. You have your first job. You're old enough to drink. Yeah. You're having the best life ever. Yeah. And if you've got £100 left at the end of the month,
you're going to spend it.
That's great.
Yeah, but we're not educating them again. So if we were educating them all the way through to understand that things go wrong, life throws you curveballs, it does for everybody, and actually you need to protect yourself and but we do live in a society of instant gratification. Yeah. We live in a society of consumption.
We're not encouraging people to save all their money and do all the right
small
decisions.
Proportion.
It's just
build it up.
Some small things that people can do that mean that maybe one less takeaway a month or one less night out a month could make the difference between them being resilient enough to get through those bumps in the road that we all learn from experience.
Because you do, you come to the office on a Monday morning and kind of the older crowd who've got kids are doing responsible stuff and going to B&Q on the weekends, and the younger crowd you kind of live vicariously through.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But they're always the ones that are complaining they've got no money at the end of the month. So as fun as that is,
it's a balance.
They might be putting their face on and not be anxious about not having any money at the week. Yeah. So, but business owners need to be thinking about educating, because you assume, I don't need a financial advisor because I haven't got loads of money.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Because that's for rich people.
Yeah, and a lot of the time they can't afford a financial advisor.
It feels very inaccessible.
Absolutely right.
And that's the difference between financial advice that you pay for and guidance, and that's the difference. That's what that's what we're about. We have specialists on our team like John that can provide guidance in whatever area you want to talk about.
Yeah.
And again, by removing that challenge of never having any money left, you get a more resilient workforce, which means it's the individual is less likely to chase the buck. They're less likely to be looking for that job that will pay them a bit more. Because for starters, that won't solve the problem because they'll still spend everything they've got.
Yeah, you do.
Unless their
Exactly.
education changes.
Yeah.
But they're more likely to be turned by a job offer of an extra couple of £1,000 a year.
Yeah.
Whilst if they were better in control of their money and understood it and saw the benefit they were getting from their employer, they're less likely to run.
They can just enjoy the job they're in and not worry about leaving.
Absolutely right.
Huge from a retention point of view.
I spend a lot of time in one-to-ones having. There's two ends of the spectrum. Whenever we offer out one-to-ones for employers, I get lots of people at the beginning of their financial career, their financial life, who experience exactly that. I seem to get paid a lot of money. I've never got enough money left. Where does it all go? How do I better manage this? And then I get lots of people at the other end who want to talk about retirement, and this is going to come to an end soon, and I haven't got a good enough pension. And that fact is sometimes true, but quite often not. And there are always lots of things that people can do to make a difference. Even if they're 4 weeks away from retirement, frankly, there's still lots of things people can do. But most employers don't understand their pension scheme and rely on the pension provider to educate.
I've just got auto enrolment. It's fine. Don't need to think about it.
Exactly right, which is great.
Which is probably me.
It's 95% of people. Auto enrolment is one of the best things that have happened in the last 20 years with regard to retirement planning. But that doesn't mean that anyone understands the benefits, how they can take advantage of it.
And I would also say with that, I think employers do really well in the auto-enrolment space, but it's usually just a sign up here in an email when you first join, as part of your induction. There's nobody explaining to a young adult why they should be thinking about 40 years ahead, when actually all they want to do is go to the pub on a Friday night, right?
Yeah.
So actually, although they are auto-enrolled, we're seeing a huge increase in unenrollment at the moment, where people are going, actually, I want that extra 30 quid to go to the pub on a Friday night. I'll just pause it. I'll redo it again at some point in the future. And they never
realise
do.
the value of that 30
Because
quid.
the education's not there.
But it's worse than that, because they actually go, my pension's costing me £100 a month, so I'm going to get that back. And then they don't get £100 because of the tax on it. They end up with 50 quid in their pocket
Not
instead.
as good as they thought.
And also,
And
they
they
don't
thought they'd get all of
realise,
it,
a
and
lot
they
of people
don't.
don't realise how great employee pension schemes are,
Absolutely.
because the employer also contributes.
Yeah.
So it's not just your 30 quid a month,
get
but your
free money.
employers, you get free money, right? And so many people don't know that, and so a lot of people don't realise how much more they could be paying into their pension.
Yeah.
So the whole education piece around pension, but it's a big retention piece for business owners.
Absolutely. We have absolutely run out of time.
Oh,
This
wow.
has been really good. It's absolutely flown, hasn't it?
It has.
There's so much more that we could talk about.
Okay.
But John, Justine, thank you so much.
You're
You're
welcome.
welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
And if anyone wants to
absolutely.
talk to John and Justine, then get in touch with us and we'll connect you.
Fantastic. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.